Hey, this is Phoenix, the College Success Professor, and it is another Momentum Monday, College Momentum Monday. So each Monday, I am going live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about all the things that parents um, need to know, do, and focus on before the upcoming fall semester. So this week's topic is talking about, the title is The Hard Truth, talking about the conversations that should happen way before you drop off your child at college. And this conversation is actually for any year of college, because there may be some experiences that have happened this past semester, and some things that you want to be proactive about for the upcoming semester. For those of you who have high school seniors, for those of you who have students who are already in college, it may be some new experiences that have happened this past semester. We've had a full academic year. Many students are either on their way home or have been home for about a week or two. So we're going to talk about some of the topics that come up in the transition from being a parent of a high school student to the parent of a college student. So there is a couple of resources this week that I think you may be helpful, and there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Actually, I think I'm missing. Oh, I am missing my microphone. Let me put that up here. And a couple of things to keep in mind for parents. So just to repeat that in case it didn't go through. So we're talking about hard topics, hard conversations, difficult conversations that parents can have before sending your child off to college or sending your child back to college for another semester in the fall. And this is something that needs to happen. These are continuing conversations that can happen or need to happen before drop off day, which are a couple of months away, but not that far away. So it's good to have conversations started now. So I did mention that there are a couple of resources that I will be referencing throughout the presentation. One book, and I hope it's not flipped. No, it's not. So this book actually I came across, and I only got it because the title looked interesting, but it's really, I think, has a lot of good information in it. So the title of the book is Don't Tell Me What to Do, Just Send Money. The Essential Parenting Guide to the College Years by Helen E. Johnson and Christine, I can't say the last name, Miller. And actually, this was at my local library. And like I said, I just picked it up because the title sounded very interesting. But this goes into more than just money. It goes into a lot of different topics that I think are really useful, because it's good because it gives your perspective, what's on your mind, what your child may be thinking, things not to do, things to avoid. So it's really good. It covers a bunch of different topics. And because I won't be able to get into everything today, because we're only going to be on for 30 minutes, I figured I would use this as a resource. There's another resource that I have, but I don't have with me, that's also really good. It's like a game. It's like a card game. It's a deck of cards. It's called Talking College. It is available on Amazon. I'm not sponsored by Amazon. I also happen to come across it as well. And so in the Talking College card deck, like I said, it's kind of a game. So it's a deck of cards on a variety of different topics. And I have the topics here. Moving towards independence, responsible communication, envisioning your future self, family expectations, seeking help in college, building college skills, thinking about the transition in high school versus college. So there are a bunch of different topics, and what the game is that there are some student cards, there are some parent cards, and there are some cards that you can both talk about together. So the way that the game works, or the way the instructions or directions for the card deck works, is you pick a card, and there's I'm not even sure, maybe 52. That's in a normal card deck, but it's a little bit thicker. So there are a number of different cards. You pick a card, and whatever the topic that you pick for the day, you can discuss with your child, because they will have their perspective and you will have your perspective. And why I think it's a good resource is because it comes up with topics that you may not have thought of to think about or talk about or discuss before going to college. And it also gives you an opportunity to align your expectations versus your child expectations and start having those honest conversations. Now, I did my own notes on topics that should be discussed before college and topics that should be discussed during college. You don't know, everybody's college experience is going to be different. If you are a person or a parent who has been to college, you may have some perspective on your experiences in college, which you should share with your child. But college has changed likely since the time you were in college. But giving your perspective, your thoughts, and your expectations are going to be good. I think I read this or talked about this last week, but I do have this quote. And it says, research has suggested that students whose parents contribute significant financial support to their education without sharing expectations may have lower GPAs. So what the goal of these conversations is to talk about your expectations, not just with grades, not just with the academic part, but there are some non-academic factors or non-academic things, because they're likely going to a new city or maybe going at least not at home. Some students do commute, but most students do go away from home, live on campus, and there is more choice, more decisions, more things that they're exposed to that they may not have been exposed to in high school. So it's important to have these conversations with your children. So I have like a list of different things that are going to be important. And we talked about one of them last week when we were talking about money in college. And so just in case you didn't see that one of those things is money. So not only, paying for college and, getting loans and or if you're on a payment plan, but like money is in how are they going to earn money? How are they going to save money? How are they going to deal with like emergencies? How are they going to have spending money? So having conversations about that and what is their expectation with regard to like paying for things like getting their hair done or going out with their friends and things like that. So having those conversations and making sure that both the parent and the child has the same expectations when it comes to money. Um, Also, that bigger topic of financial literacy, like if they get a credit card and what that means, and making sure that they are not, messing up their credit, making sure that if they are in an upper level and not wanting to live on campus, that they have maintained or acquired enough credit to be able to get a lease or an apartment or a rental. So all of that stuff about money is going to be important. And like I said, these are things that are not necessarily just for a student who's just going off to college for the first time, but if they're at a point in their emerging adulthood or becoming an adult where they want to start accumulating credit and making their own money and things like that, that's a conversation. And those are some things, this is some topics that you want to talk about, definitely. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the stuff that happens inside the classroom. So for the parents who may have had a semester or two under your belt, and there is the things about grades that sometimes comes up. So grades being as in the case of either losing a scholarship or being put on academic probation or not getting into your major. These are things that can come up in college. And so what that also brings up for some students is some shame, some feelings of disappointment, some feelings of anxiety, some feelings of overwhelm and stress, and even the major conversation. I know that what can happen, just because I have been in the field for a long time, I know that what can happen is sometimes students don't want to disappoint. They don't want to, feel that as their parent, are wasting their money and things like that. So they don't always tell you what's going on for real in terms of academic. They may have changed their major or maybe thinking about changing their major, but they're afraid to talk to their parents about that. And so one of the suggestions that actually this book does cover, and I also recommend, is that when children do come to their parents for guidance or advice or to vent about, a major or a class or having difficulty in a class or having difficulty with a professor, that you definitely listen. Withhold judgment is definitely a big thing. Even if may have your own thoughts. Unfortunately, this is something that students can use as a learning experience, as a growth opportunity for them. So having the your feelings about whether they should major in a maybe more lucrative major versus a less lucrative major, having your ideas is not necessarily always helpful for students. What is better is to send them to resources, send them to be able to do some research on their own to make their ultimate decision. Because students will eventually get to what's the best decision for them without the extra stress and lack of support. When that happens, it kind of, makes it a little bit more difficult for them to make decisions because sometimes students make decisions not in their best interest academically, not in their best interest financially. If a student is not necessarily interested in something, but it does make a lot of money, depending on the student's values, they may wind up, going through college, maybe getting a degree in it, and then eventually finding that they're not happy and they're not fulfilled in it. So maybe even having to go back to school to get a different degree, or maybe not. So the point is being open and receptive to being a listening, um, a person who listens or a parent who listens to your child when they're coming to you with these problems and challenges, helping them to solve problem, helping them to figure out how to solve problems using the resources that are available to them. Because many students sometimes catastrophize and think that all is lost if things don't go as they expected. And so helping them to use the resources that are available to them, the faculty resources, the academics support resources, the career resources, all the different resources that are in place on college campuses that students don't necessarily always use. Sometimes students want to give up rather than trying a different approach. They want to transfer. They want to not only transfer schools, but transfer to a different major. So having that conversation is going to be important. So we talked about the things that are happening inside the classroom. And there are things that happen both inside the classroom and in the academic setting and also on campus that are going to be important for parents to have conversations with their children about. And some of these conversations are going to be difficult. They're going to be, maybe uncomfortable, especially if you've never talked about these things before, like your child's, when they're growing up and they are having maybe relationships with other people, relationships with roommates who may be different from them, and they're being exposed to different things. So there are great things that and new experiences that happen when students go off to college, and there are maybe some not so great things that happen and experiences that go off when students go off to college. So, for example, and this is, I don't know how common this is, but there are experiences where maybe your roommate, a student's roommate, is into, drinking or experimenting with drugs and alcohol. And, what is your expectation? Have you communicated your expectation with your child with regard to that? There are sometimes students go off to college in a state where certain drugs are legal, and so what happens with that, or having that discussion with your child regarding your expectations. What happens if regarding safety and security, whether you have a girl or a boy going off to college, talking, having conversations about consent and what that means. And many colleges do have like a class or a workshop that they do on campus. When they arrive to campus, either before it's like an online course or it's a part of their orientation. But having those conversations are going to be important because no one expects the worst thing to happen. But it's good to be prepared and have conversations about, what to do in these circumstances or what your expectations of them in these circumstances. And also the combination of, going out and partying, making sure that they're safe. So having those open lines of communication are going to be important for you and your family. And in that transition period, where where your student is, learning who their friends are, learning how to build those relationships, learning who to trust, learning where to go to for help and support. All of that is going to be a big part of the transition to college. So the academic transition to college, the social transition to college, the emotional transition to college, all of that is going to be very much something that can take time. And, depending on what different experiences they have, how outgoing they are, how many new and different types of people they connect with and start to build relationships with. All of these different things can happen at any point during the college years. So making sure that you're having this opportunity for your child to be open and come to you, and making sure that they feel that they can come to you. They're not going to, you're not going to necessarily know everything that goes on, but having the security that you maybe have talked about these things, whether or not they've happened or not, is a good way to be proactive rather than being reactive based off of, circumstances that happen, whether you know about them or that you don't know about them. Um, so let me see. Let me see what else. What else? What else? All right. Another thing that is going to be important is, when you're having these conversations, it's a good foundation of like how frequently are you expecting them to call you? How frequently are you expecting them to text, call, email? Like, what is the communication going to be like? What is the expectation regarding, how often and frequently they reach out to you? How often and frequently you reach out to them? Do you have like a regular weekly call? Every 2 weeks? You all have to discuss that. They have some expectations. Maybe you have expectations with regard to making sure that you know what's going on, or making sure that they feel that they can contact you whenever they want, or whatever the foundation or expectation is that you have in your family. So let me look at my notes real quick to make sure I'm getting to everything. Um, so I did have like another, let me see what time. All right, we're good with time. I did have another thing, like a list of things that parents don't necessarily think about or consider when, for the first time or the first semester or first year that a child goes off to college, some things that can be distractions, or when you're talking about expectations. So I have a list of things here that you can, or you might want to consider. Your child, likely your child, and you know which one of these they may fall into, and which ones they may not be, that may not be relevant to your child. So one of the things, and this happens with a lot of students, regardless if they were like academically like a high achiever or not in college, and I call this majoring in fun. So what happens with this mindset sometimes with students is that they felt, or they feel like they have done all the work, all the studying, all the things that they did in high school to get into college. And now they deserve to have some fun. They deserve to, kick back and have fun. And sometimes that can cost them, like we were talking about earlier, losing scholarships or being put on academic probation and things like that. So having conversations about balancing the different things that you get to experience in college, because definitely college should be fun, but you don't want to major in fun because that can leave you to lose out on money, opportunities, grades, your future career goals, things like that. So having conversations about that. Um, and then sometimes there are students who are not emotionally mature enough to deal with the freedoms of college. So your child regarding that, and in that case, many students or many parents sometimes have children either commute. They can be a commuter, or they can go to a community college and things like that. So knowing your child and having these types of conversations, and even the child themselves may say, "I don't feel like I'm ready to go to college," and you can defer, you can do a gap year, and have some specific experiences that happen before they go to college in order for them to mature. So not being mature enough can also be a barrier to being successful in college, and having that discussion on their maturity, their emotional maturity, their ability to deal with stress and overwhelm, their coping skills, their ability to deal with anxiety, new situations, uncomfortable situations, all of that, and having conversations about that in advance, and maybe some opportunities to practice going away. Like if they're in like high school still, having opportunities to go away for like 2 weeks or so for like a summer program on a college campus is a good opportunity to practice the skills that they're going to need when they actually go off to college. Um, I'm just going to do two more. The last two things is not understanding really what is at stake or not fully appreciating what is at. I, mm, it is what is at stake because colleges cost money for and the cost can be a lot of money. Parents can go into debt, families can go into debt. Not understanding what's at stake and not doing what's really required to be successful because of not fully understanding what's at stake, not really having a concept of what, I don't know, $20,000 in debt means for your future, not having an understanding of what wasting a year or wasting a semester by not going to class, by only focusing on, things that are not important. So it's kind of similar to majoring in fun, but not necessarily understanding what's at stake, not understanding, knowing the importance of going to college and focusing and not letting the distractions that may get you off track of your goals. That's going to be important. All right, so those are the main things that I wanted to talk about today. I did have like a list of all the different things that can come up in college that can set students off track. Obviously, you don't want to. I do have like four different ways or reasons why students are not successful in college. And one of them that parents don't even think about is sometimes students can get dismissed because of academic integrity issues. And that's what colleges call like cheating or plagiarism and things like that. And especially with the onslaught of ChatGPT and things like that, there can be gray areas and things like that. So some schools, if there's instances, they may just give you an F for the class or an F for an exam. Some schools may take it as far as suspending you from the university. So thinking about things like that regarding academic integrity, having conversations with your children about making sure that they're doing things on the up and up, using the resources at the university if there are questions or concerns, especially when writing a paper or documenting and citing things in papers, because different professors have different roles, different professors have different levels of tolerance for what they consider plagiarism or cheating and things like that. So that's an important thing that oftentimes parents don't take into consideration. All right, so next week we're going to be talking about the college to career transition. So, what's the plan to get from the first year to the actual career, and how all of that can be thought through during that first year or even before that first year, and what are the things and strategies and things to think about, things to focus on, and things to do in terms of that. So, that is it for today's Momentum Monday. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye.